All right. Hey, good morning, YouTube. What's going on out there? So we got a couple people joining us so far. Welcome to the chat. Good morning. It's Friday. I think everybody be happy about that. So I'm going to change it up just a little bit, change the title a bit to have a little bit more truth in advertising after looking at the way this has went the last couple of months. Kind of look at reformatting a little bit. We'll see if we do anything fancy, but kind of just go more into what we kind of more talk about. The SHTF that's going on around us every day. Hopefully it's going on around us. Sometimes it happens to us. But that's kind of what change the title to and see how that goes. And if people get it more, we get random people jump in here that probably were misled maybe by the title or something. So we'll do that and see how it goes and see how everybody likes it. We'll try to frame our news around the different types of situations and just whether it's collapse, economic collapse, extreme rule of law, SHTF, environmental disaster, natural disasters, whatever. Just try to put it in that context so that we get more of the point across, I guess you'd say. So hopefully that doesn't get off the rails too bad, even though we'll probably diverge here and there. That happens too. But yeah, weather's looking pretty busy out there. A little bit of everybody getting a little bit of something. Pretty much rain, snow, everything going on somewhere out there throughout the rest of the weekend. It looks like we've gotten some pretty good rain this week and snow up high, and look like we're going to get some more this weekend. So that's good for us and our water situation. What's not good, speaking of natural disasters, is all this rain has brought mudslides, in particular the burn areas. It's always a concern even years after. Sometimes you get an area that burns, it could have a potential mudslide depending on how the downpour shows up at your doorstep. So we got some video here off of the Weather Channel. Talk about something you can't prepare for, even less warning oftentimes with these mudslides, especially in your spring type of rain showers where it is localized thunderstorms that just hit over a right area. They get up on a little bit of elevation. They start rushing down a canyon. Can get ugly.
Campfire destroyed the town of Paradise. Residents in Butte County were evacuated once again. Heavy rain triggered mudslides and debris flow that trapped at least 100 vehicles near Chico. Rainfall rates Thursday afternoon were about 1.5 inches per hour. A mess of mud, debris, and downed trees and power lines littered Chico. Officials reported multiple water rescues there, which is where many of the fire evacuees from Paradise are staying. Evacuated residents could be returning to Paradise next week if roads are cleared. And in Southern California, near Malibu, near where the Woolsey fire was, a mudslide blocked streets, but no significant damage was reported. The storm also knocked out power and flooded multiple roads across the greater Los Angeles area.
So there's that situation. Something to think about there is whether or not you're in the fire area or not. Mudslides later, shortly thereafter, could isolate you in or outside of the burn area, which could be good or bad depending on your logistics situation. If you have what kind of water storage and food and everything else you got with you, if you're an evacuee and you get isolated to where you can't get back to resources, if you don't have any with you, could be problematic. But several different mudslide areas, it looks like, out there near those fires. There's definitely been coming down. We've been getting our share of water over here, which we've enjoyed, but that's kind of overdoing it over there with some of the quick amounts they get. It just runs off, takes everything with it. Who we got out here in the side? Nobody's in the side chat yet. Everybody's lurking out there, it looks like. Probably having to dig out of their snowstorms or whatever, looking at the weather map. So further problems out there, California way, to deal with the weather and whatnot. But I'm sure we'll get some good snow pictures coming out of the Rockies today, based upon this way it's building up. Looks like Alicia is getting plenty of snow. Anybody out there, land, all up and down the Rockies, Utah, going to be getting a good dose of snow. It looks like early might hang around for Christmas. Everybody going to give a white Christmas this year, whether you like it or not. Some people aren't so enthused about that for some reason. I don't know what their problems are. You know what I'm saying? So more to look forward to there. Lots of rain coming out of the southeast. So moving on out of the weather front, diseases seem to be popping up left and right. We've been hearing about the Ebola outbreak in the Congo for quite a while now. They're now measuring it as the second largest Ebola outbreak. But what measures are being taken to make sure it doesn't become the first? Or is it not going to become the first and worst and maybe last? To be determined. But here it says the Ebola outbreak in eastern Congo is now the second biggest, 426 confirmed probable cases. And just think about how 426 does not sound like a whole lot. Think about how people like basically panic when the Ebola breaks out because of the severity of it. Now imagine that number gets triple digits. The kind of panic we could see. But it is only surpassed by the 2013-16 outbreak, which we're all familiar with. That was where 28,000 cases were confirmed. So last time there were 28,000 cases confirmed. So that's a big step between where we are now, 426, with that last time where it really got out of control, where we pretty much did have a lot of panic, except for we didn't have like shutting down borders or trade or nothing like that. Hey, we got Mule Team out here in the side chat. What's going on? It's still dark outside here, Mule. Sheep feeding's not my duty in the morning anyway. The sheep have got a little bit they can handle to graze on until they get the main feed later. But I focus on the birds this early in the morning. But Ebola is believed to have killed 245 people in those northern provinces, where attacks by armed groups and community resistance to health officials has hampered the response. Outbreak coupled on top of a war can make your SHTF go very badly. And usually disease always follows war in the historical sense. It doesn't have to be the Ebola. It can just be a different strain of the flu. Could be all it takes to really put people down and out and wreak havoc throughout the community and economy after the war if there's not a lot of sanitation, et cetera, et cetera. Congo has suffered 10 outbreaks since 1976. Okay, how it's spread, yada, yada. Senior Director of Emergency Health at the International Rescue Committee said the tragic milestone clearly demonstrates the complexity and severity of the outbreak. The dynamics of conflict, a protracted outbreak is likely, and it is, and the end is not in sight. So none of them are expecting to contain this anytime soon. It doesn't sound like. And that's the end of that. But definitely Something we always keep our eye on because I don't know how to. Let's see if what kind of. We got a video here to see how it works. What they got to say.
The latest Ebola outbreak has become the second worst in African history. Over 405 people have been infected in the North Kivu region of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So far, more than half of those have died. The mortality rate for Ebola high at 63%. And this time, the virus is proving even harder to contain. Most of the outbreaks began in deeply isolated areas in sub-Saharan Africa. Not this one. It began in August among dense and very mobile local populations. Health workers are struggling to establish an effective vaccination program, with ongoing rebel militia violence making the task harder. Reuters' Julia Paravicini is in the DRC.
Containment of the current outbreak is particularly difficult, since response teams are being stopped in their daily job by increased insecurity within the city of Beni and also by community resistance. Vaccinations are available, but often because of the insecurity, teams have to stop the vaccinations, and also surveillance and tracing contacts of patients and transferring the patients to treatment centers. This obviously slows down the response and favors the spread of the disease.
Since its initial discovery in 1976, Ebola's posed most risk to this central swathe of Africa, from Guinea in the west to Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo in the east. The red dots illustrate the locations of previous outbreaks. The biggest so far was between 2014 and 2016 in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, in which more than 11,000 people died. The current outbreak is centered on North Kivu in the DRC, the 10th the country has experienced, and now bigger than one in Uganda in 2000. Health workers are not only hampered by gunfire, they often face resistance from the Congolese, who accuse medics of spreading Ebola with their vaccination needles, or believe it does not exist at all. Those who do seek medical help often find themselves in unsanitary medical facilities where the virus spreads. Delays to blood tests and the isolation and safe burial of victims also do little to prevent the spread of Ebola.
And now, with round-the-clock updates from Reuters journalists, here are to...
So there's that going on. Just keeping an eye on how that does or does not stay contained, if you know what I'm saying. Hey, we got Rooster Cogburn out there. Good morning. Billy Bird Outdoors has joined us, and Tactical Tony's sneaking in here. What do you know? What is going on, folks? Good morning. Rooster, you still getting the rain? It looks like there's more coming for round 3 this weekend. Your team wants to know what we should charge Trump for buyback our bump stocks, right? Oh, that's we I think we called it a while back. But hope you're doing good, Mule. Thanks for checking in. Tactical Tony, yo. America loves some Trump. Oh, all right, Tony. Another case in here, another story about the measles outbreaks going on. Measles cases rising. Measles cases jumped more than 30% last year compared to 2016. Sure, it has nothing to do with war and mass migrations. Disease always follows war. Interesting. With increases recorded in wealthy European countries like Germany, where vaccination coverage has historically been high until you dump a bunch of people that refugee status into these countries. But they'll never talk about that. Let's see if they do, though. World Health Organization said worrying trend of resurgent measles cases was a near global phenomenon, but the causes varied. In Europe, experts blame the problem in part on complacency and misinformation about the vaccine, proven to be both effective and safe. Oh, really? Blaming it on the victims instead of world events. Director of Immunization, Vaccines, and Biologicals told reporters that supposed experts making accusations, yada, yada. Cases have also spiked in Latin America, partially due to collapsing health system in Venezuela. Crippling political and economic crisis in Venezuela has triggered massive inflation and with hospitals struggling to maintain stocks. Yes, I'm sure that's the case. What's more worrying, increasing cases are seeing sustained measles transmission in countries that previously had not seen measles transmission for many years. Basically, we've forgotten how to isolate people and stay out of public when you get sick. It used to be a common thing. I mean, measles is not the end all be all. It's not super deadly, but it is miserable. Everybody remembers the chicken pox, right? Measles is worse than that, so it's not like you want to be out roaming around. So countries that had previously had what they call a measles elimination certificate have had them withdrawn over the last 12 months. Germany, Russia, and Venezuela among them. A country loses its measles elimination status when the same type of virus has been circulating for more than 12 continuous months. Wow. It's not rocket science. WHO stressed that the overall global fight against measles had shown impressive results in this century. In 2000, there were more than 850,000 cases reported worldwide, compared to 173,000 last year. So that's a very small amount in the big picture. So you're looking at the numbers, it's like, calm down there, Junior. It's not that bad. But when you're having all that success, like, what causes a resurgence in cases? Global coverage as a vaccine coverage has stalled at 85% for several years, with the figures lower in poorer country regions like Africa, which has coverage rates of 70% in 2017, which is still relatively high. Measles is a highly contagious disease which can cause severe diarrhea, pneumonia, and vision loss, and can be fatal in some cases. Yeah, you don't want to get it, but again, what's the root cause, I guess you could ask. Uh-oh. Who's getting a new shotty, Mule? Picking up a new 590? Is that a Mossberg 590? Who does 590s? I'm so out of the loop on my nomenclatures. Hopefully Tactical Tony wants to get the Ebola, I guess. Or does he just want it for you? New shotties always make you feel good, right? Truth Blitz, True Blitz. Good morning, Dad, on YouTube. Morning to you. And your wet and soggy self, it looks like, based upon the weather map. Been out of shape. Good morning. Are you out there in paradise? I see. We were just talking about the mudslides just a little bit ago. Definitely a little soggy out there, and getting a double dose of SHTF on top of you with mudslides and flooding and everything else. Gray Man Outdoors is here with us. Good morning. Oh, everybody gets Ebola but Tony and the pup. Okay, so Waters got it. Okay, gotcha. I see where your priorities are. So the 590s of Mossberg. Okay, gotcha, Mule. Right on. Oh, Dad, yeah. If you haven't raked the leaves by now, you might be out of luck. The way this weather's looking, it'll be after Christmas. Then you'll have, well, you might not have snow on the ground, so maybe you'll get a chance. Some places out here, if you ain't raked the leaves by this time, you ain't gonna get a chance. It's gonna be covered in snow and frozen to the ground for the rest of the winter till like March. So there's your disease outbreak warnings. Stock up on hand sanitizer and PPE. Know your disease signs and symptoms. If you get the fever, don't go nowhere. If you know people got the fever, don't go over and visit, or at least don't get all hugging up on them and stuff. Depending on what it is, obviously, look for other signs other than just they assume they have just a little flu or something. It could be much worse. But probably most of us have got the MMR measles vaccine. It's prevalent, widely prevalent here, so it's not usually a problem here. But cases do spread among the population, again, with the migrant refugee populations that bring it in and just catch one or two people that may not have it, and it just spreads a little bit in the community sometimes. All right, going on down to some extreme rule of law stuff. The situation in South Africa continues to devolve. We talked about how they had essentially amended their constitution to allow for confiscation of land without compensation, and it looks like whatever legal battle they were fighting has been lost. It's thrown out by the country's high court, of course, because the government will never rule against itself. Just a fair warning. But it looks like they threw out the legal challenge brought out by the white farmers. So the president's planning for the expropriation. And let's see. The High Court rejected a legal challenge today brought by a group representing the white farmers. Of course, it's a hot button issue. As the president has stoked the fires of racism and separatism within the country. So Ramaphosa, who replaced the previous president in February, has made land redistribution a flagship policy as he seeks to unite the fractured ANC to win public support ahead of an election next year. So everybody's going to be all happy that they're taking everybody's land. They're going to vote for him again, I guess. Yeah, it's easy to get the urban masses all happy just because somebody else is suffering. Wait till they start starving and see how that works out for them, and their food prices continue to go up. I'm sure he'll just promise more action of a similar sort. In its legal challenge, AfriForum questioned the legality of a key parliamentary committee report which recommended a change to the Constitution to allow the land expropriation without compensation. The relief sought by the applicants is dismissed, says the judge, Saldana. AfriForum, which represents mostly white Afrikaners, alleged the parliamentary committee had illegally appointed an external service provider to compile the report and also failed to consider more than 100,000 submissions opposing land expropriation without compensation. Around 65% of public submissions were against the change. According to the parliamentary officials, Parliament successfully countered AfriForum's case by saying the court action was premature. The committee had not abrogated its powers, and all views had been taken into account. So basically saying, hey, just let us get this enacted, and then we'll see how bad it is before you can take us to court. Oh, whoa, here. You don't skip it around on me. We welcome, so a quote here, we welcome the orders handed down today, particularly because we've always been of the view that the matter was not urgent. Until your first piece of land gets taken, it gets urgent for that person because they're never getting it back. You know that. That was the co-founder of the Constitutional Review Committee told reporters. The lawmakers may set aside recommendations. Quit skipping here, British paper. They may reject the recommendations, but procedurally, we can't just reject the whole work of the committee, he said. He said, well, the report is just one step in a long process to change the Constitution. Will probably be debated in both houses of Parliament on December 4th, which they've already said it's baked in the cake. It's going forward at that point. They're just trying to make it legal. They know they're not doing the right thing. They're just trying to make it legal so they can cover their tracks for the masses. Thereafter is expected a new bill proposing the exact changes envisaged to the Constitution will go to Parliament and further public participation. Once both houses of Parliament approve changes to the Constitution, it will be sent to Ramaphosa for ratification. This process is unlikely to be completed before a parliamentary election expected to be held in May. So it'll still be flying out there, so they'll run on the prospect of further land. They may drag this out just to get reelected. It seems like, because the results after this starts happening are going to be very bad, so they're not going to want to implement it too quickly. After reform set after the judgment, they would continue challenging what they say is a flawed process, including further legal action. After reform, therefore, undertakes to use every possible mechanism at its disposal in the interest of everyone in the country, fight to the bitter end against the undermining of property rights. Yes. It's not your land, it's the government's land. I think we've always kind of figured that's where we stand pretty much right now, and definitely in South Africa. Things are continuing to evolve. They continue to have these violent attacks on the daily, with the president and the lead political agency there pretty much tacitly approval of the different violent attacks on the farmers out there, just so it's one of those things if they can get them to leave on their own, they don't have to worry about facing them physically to take their land. What's going on in the side chat? Mule had measles with the kid. See, he survived, but it's not fun. Do you get Mule? If you get measles, do you also get chicken pox, or does measles like override the chicken pox and you're kind of immune to both after the fact? Dad on YouTube says it's not SHTF till it happens to you. So true. And that's why you use those occasions where it happens to everybody else to study and just understand a little bit more of what we might be missing. See how everybody else responds when it happens to them, to see if you can do it better. But I got Bubba. Hey, good morning. How's it going? But I got Bubba says, for every infected person, the chances of mutation increases. But unless the rate of symptom display lengthens, it won't make it here unless some moron president bring it. We're talking about Ebola in particular. Ebola in particular has that effect. The flu virus mutates rapidly. It's one of those inverse proportional things. The more deadly a disease, the less adaptable it is. The less deadly it is, it adapts and mutates rapidly. Kind of one of those weird things of nature, I guess you would say, the way things are designed. Things are just designed to make you sick and have a low impact on the population, kind of ebb and flow and just rapidly change their makeup. And the ones that are deadly are much slower to adapt. Probably so they don't kill us all, because if we adapted quickly, they'd kill us all, because our body has to have time to adapt as well. And the thing with Ebola, like something like that, in the Western world, it doesn't. If you get treatment and get to what we would call healthcare, hospital type care, the recovery rates are very high. I mean, in the 80-90% range, if you just get that type of care. But when you're getting they're getting treated in the Congo and stuff, the survival rates are much, much lower, just based on that. So you don't want to get Ebola after SHTF, because there's not going to be that healthcare hospital situation going on, and you're going to be in bad shape. Oh, Mule Team, you got both as a kid. Parents used to have parties. Yeah, I've heard of those. Yeah, I just remember getting the chicken pox. We survived, endeavored to persevere. Dad on YouTube's watched so many dang prepper vids. I don't know what I made up myself or what I heard somebody else say. Right? Yeah, I think that's been around a while. It's not SHTF till it happens to you, right? That's kind of the highlights I had. Oh, I had one more extreme rule of law example off the Zero Hedge. I didn't catch their stuff they put up this morning. This came out last night. But strangely, absence Tommy Boy 9s is not with us this morning. I don't know what the deal is. But I'm sure he's checking up on the stock market about right now. But Zero Hedge took an article over from the Rutherford Institute, brought it over to share. Says you have the right to talk back to the government, but it could get you killed. Speaking of extreme rule of law. But it's authored by John Whitehead, says here, the freedom of individuals verbally to oppose or challenge police action without thereby risking arrest is one of the principal characteristics by which we distinguish a free nation from a police state. That was Justice William Brennan, City of Houston versus Hill. What the architects of the police state want are submissive, compliant, cooperative, obedient, meek citizens who don't talk back, don't challenge government authority, don't speak out against government misconduct, and don't step out of line. Very true. Can't argue with that. What the First Amendment protects and the healthy constitutional republic requires are citizens who routinely exercise their right to speak truth to power. It's one way to say it, I guess. It's not an easy undertaking. Weaponized by police, prosecutors, courts, and legislatures, disorderly conduct charges have become a convenient means by which to punish those individuals who refuse to be muzzled. It goes into a few bullet point here of examples. Denise Hargrave, a language arts teacher in Louisiana, was thrown to the ground, handcuffed, and arrested for speaking out during a public comment period at a school board meeting. Faye Lozman, arrested for alluding to government corruption during open comment time at a city council meeting in Palm Beach County, Florida. Dan Heyman, a reporter for the Public News Service, was arrested for aggressively questioning Tom Price, the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, during an encounter at the West Virginia state capitol. College professor Ursa Orr was slammed to the ground and arrested after she objected to the disrespectful manner shown by a campus cop who stopped her in the middle of the street and demanded that she show her ID. Philadelphia lawyer Rebecca Masura was arrested for exercising her right to remain silent and refusing to answer questions posed by a police officer during a routine traffic stop. Note, she cooperated in every other way by providing license and registration, etc. Yeah, if you don't tell the police, like, where you're going, they're like, where are you going? What are you doing? Well, I don't have to answer that. Oh, they're going to pin you up. That happens all the time. Just for remaining silent. Which, that's when you're facing charges. This is before you even get charged. They're considering you guilty of something. It's the police state in action for sure. Robert Bartlett was arrested during an Arctic Man festival in Alaska. Who knew there was such a thing? I've never heard of Arctic Man. We're going to have to go check that out. He was arrested during this festival, allegedly in retaliation for refusing to be interrogated by police and interviewing when police attempted to question other people, or intervening when police attempted to question other people. His case is before the Supreme Court. Cases like these have become all too common. Yeah, it seems like we see them on a daily basis almost nowadays. Typically, of the bipolar nature of life in the American police state today, you may have distinct protected rights on paper, but dare to exercise those rights and you put yourself at risk for fines, arrests, injuries, and even death. It's very true. This is the unfortunate price of freedom. Yet these are the not new developments. We have been circling this particular drain hole for some time now. Almost 50 years ago, Lewis Colton was arrested outside Lexington, Kentucky, for questioning police and offering advice to his friend during a traffic stop. Colton was one of 20 or so college students who had driven to Bluegrass Airport to demonstrate against then First Lady Pat Nixon. Upon leaving the airport, police stopped one of the cars in Colton's motorcade because it bore an expired out-of-state license plate. Colton and the other drivers also pulled over to the side of the road, fearing violence on the part of the police. Colton exited his vehicle and stood nearby while police issued his friend Mendez a ticket and arranged to tow his car. Police repeatedly asked Colton to leave. At one point, a state trooper declared, "None of this. This is none of your affair. Get back in your car and please move on and clear the road." Insisting that he wanted to make a transportation arrangement for his friend and the occupants of the other car, Colton failed to move away and was arrested for violating Kentucky's disorderly conduct statute, failing to obey the orders of those appointed over you. It's almost like that's the situation, right? Colton subsequently challenged his arrest as a violation of his First Amendment right to free speech. Took the case all the way to the Supreme Court, which sided with the police. Although the court acknowledged that Colton was not trespassing or disobeying any traffic regulation himself, the majority affirmed that Colton had no constitutional right to observe the issuance of a traffic ticket or to engage the issuing officer in conversation at that time. The Supreme Court's bottom line, which is the government protecting the government, protecting police from inconvenience, annoyance, or alarm is more important than protecting speech that, in the government's estimation, has no social value. It's all definitions now, isn't it? While the ruling itself was unsurprising for a judiciary that tends to march in lockstep with the police, the dissent by William Douglas is a powerful reminder that the government exists to serve the people and not the other way around, stressing that Colton's speech was quiet, not boisterous, devoid of fighting words, and involved no overt acts, fisticuffs, or disorderly conduct in the normal meaning of the word. Douglas took issue with the idea that merely speaking to a government representative, in this case the police, a right enshrined in the First Amendment, by the way, Colton was perceived as inconveniencing and annoying the police. How much longer is this? That's quite a bit. We're going to have to wrap this up. But in the defense of speech, the Justice Douglas said in the quotes here, since when have we Americans been expected to bow submissively to authority and speak with awe and reverence to those who represent us? The constitutional theory is that we, the people, are the sovereigns, the state and the federal officials, only our agents. We who have the final word can speak softly or angrily. We can seek to challenge and annoy, as we need not say stay docile and quiet. The situation might have indicated that Colton's techniques were ill-suited to the mission he was on, that diplomacy would have been more effective. But at the constitutional level, speech need not be sedative. It can be disruptive. And it goes on to talk about different examples here. And then he's going into the main part of the headline. However, talking back, especially when police involved, can get you killed. And we've all seen examples of that. And he gives a few other examples in here. This is the thin blue line over which you must not cross in interactions with the police if you want to walk away with your life and freedoms intact. If ever there were a time to scale back on the mindset adopted by cops that they are the law and should be revered, feared, and obeyed, it's now. Yeah, I don't know if we're even not too far down that road already. Yeah, he's got a lot of good examples here. Americans as young as 4 are being leg shackled, handcuffed, tasered, and held at gunpoint for not being quiet, not being orderly, and just being childlike, i.e. not being compliant enough. Americans as old as 95 are being beaten, shot, and killed for questioning an order, hesitating in the face of a directive, and mistaking a policeman crashing through their door for a criminal breaking into their home. Also, i.e. not being submissive enough. As a result, Americans are being brainwashed into believing that anyone who wears a government uniform, soldier, police officer, prison guard, etc., must be obeyed without question. Yes, indeed, that's our situation. The extreme rule of law police state is very much been in our faces for a long time, as we've seen. And we've talked about. This is a good article. Definitely go check that out in your description box links. Definitely a good read to share with others that maybe don't quite get it yet. But that quote from the Chief Justice is good, or not Chief Justice, but one of the Supreme Court justices from back in the day, when you would think that we would have had a more rational court, but not as we would think. But yeah, that's a good one. Definitely go check that out. It could get you killed to talk back, and it's happening on the daily almost. What we got going on in the side chat here? Where did I leave off at? You guys are leaving me behind here. Mule Team says no real difference between South Africa and the Western U.S. Geographically, Mule Team, or rural, like there's wide open spaces. There are many differences in some respects too. Our mountains are a lot bigger. Measles, we skipped over that. True Blitz, when a government goes bankrupt, it loses its sovereignty. Oh, that's a whole nother issue, but the people have to stand up to devolve it if that's what the case needs to happen. Government can't just take its own actions, supposedly, but it does anyway. Been out of shape is going to deal with a FEMA employee. All right, good luck with that. That would not be something that I would enjoy. Have a good day. Hopefully you get restored and back on your feet soon. Dad on YouTube, it's like standing on the corner with a long gun slung on your back. I think it's a you think it's a jackass thing to do with your constitutional right? I know that they have the open carry Texas people used to do that a lot at rallies and stuff. Yeah, I think in situations like that, it's not, you just got to be careful that you're, if you're trying to make a statement, it's who you're talking to, because usually you're trying to get across to the public in those situations, the necessity and the reason for it. I think one thing we got to remember is that the open carry of arms is to allow the free movement and use of the militia. And once you take that away, the militia essentially doesn't exist because they can't move freely. And that's us. So that's a big problem if you're not able to use those rights, but to use them willy-nilly, I guess you'd say, when the reason's not there, is problematic. It's a kind of a catch-22. We were so far down the line from not being responsible citizens that people don't understand what responsible citizenship looks like. So that when you get a dad with his son going hunting, gets pulled over by a Texas sheriff and arrested because he's open carrying a firearm, that's bad. Things are bad at that point. But yeah, that's a good article. Definitely go check out the links below. I guess we'll wrap it up here. Look, everybody's getting a little bit of some type of weather. Hopefully Tommy Boy didn't wash away. He's usually not absent for the whole chat. Hopefully he's doing good. He's down there in the middle of that green blob in Tennessee, so you never know what happened on the river. Hey, Barry Woods with us. Good morning from the Northwest there. Getting his own shot of winter, I'm sure. Gray Man Outdoors, I never like showing my firearms too much. People do not need to know what I have. Right? Food Forest Permaculture, morning. Good morning. You're probably wet and soggy as well. But that's the thing about it, Gray Man. It shouldn't matter if people knew what we have, but the police state is such that we're scared of our own shadows, that if somebody swats us or makes a complaint, they're going to come and try to take it, because that's the situation we're in. We're already devolved into that level of a police state where anybody can make any sideways accusation at somebody. Like these new red flag laws, very dangerous. And that's another example of the extreme rule of law that's being put upon us. It's around us, and it's just growing every day. It's very little to resist it. And like that one example gives you, it's been around for decades, and it's been slowly encroaching to the point, if you're not completely obedient and subservient to your supposed servants, they will pin you up and put you in a cage, restricting your freedom for nothing more than exercising yours. So with that, folks, stay out of this weather, I guess, if you don't have to be, or enjoy it if you can. Go skiing or something. But y'all have a good one. If you don't see you on the weekend, have a good weekend. Go out, have a good weekend. Be free. Live free.